Good evening and welcome to Grand Blanc Township Board meeting for Tuesday, June 25th. If we could all rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk Robertson, would you please call the roll?
I would be happy to, Mr. Supervisor. Trustee Hugo.
Here.
Trustee Fike is absent. Trustee Raritan.
Here.
Trustee White.
Here.
Treasurer Kilmer.
Here.
Myself, yes. Of course, I'm here. Supervisor Bennett.
Yes.
Six members present, a quorum.
I just wanted to briefly mention that Trustee Joel Fike is in Washington, D.C., working to try and bring some business to our county and as well as Grand Blanc Township. So he's working on our behalf this evening. I spoke with him this afternoon. So moving on, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda. Somebody cares? Ms. Hugo makes that motion, supported by Mr. White.
Motion by Hugo, supported by White for the agenda. Trustee Raritan.
Yes.
Trustee Hugo.
Yes.
Trustee White.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Treasurer Kilmer.
Yes.
Supervisor Bennett.
Yes.
6-0, motion passes.
Okay, moving on to public comments. I'd like to invite Ms. Mackey, Carrie Mackey, to come up and make a few comments here. Good evening.
Good evening. My name's Carrie Mackey, 5522 Howe Road, Grand Blanc, and we also own the property at 5143 South Saginaw Road, down the road here in Grand Blanc Township. And wanted to make a comment about an alley that the Road Commission owns behind 5143 and behind Fish's property. We've been trying to get that vacated. It was not successful working for the last year and a half with the Road Commission due to changes in their policies, and now you have to go through the circuit court if you want to obtain any property, and you all know that has to go through the normal procedures of if it is vacated, then it has to go out for bids. But we're asking the township to maybe take a look at it and see if they can't help us out now, more so than our pond store. I was interested in it because right now the property has a broken down privacy fence. It looks very bad, which they didn't put it up, so the Road Commission's not going to do anything about it. It is the resident behind us fencing, and they have blocked the whole alley, so there's no use of that alley by anybody else either. It's enclosed in their backyard. Fish would benefit greatly by having use of that space. So I'm going to let Barb speak now, if that's okay with the board.
Absolutely.
About their interest and how it would help fish.
Please do so. Smith, good evening.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for allowing us to speak tonight. And as Carrie has said, after much work to look at creating an abandonment for the alley that is behind Fish, which would give us a bit more space that we desperately are going to need, since we are going to be looking already at putting an addition on because we are so full and helping so many people. I'm not sure how many of you know, but when we moved in October of 22, we were helping between 150 to 200 people a week. And in the year 23, it moved up to 300. And at this time, we are helping at least 400 people a week alone with food and delivering to over 100 people. That sounds like, and it is a lot of people for a community of our size. And we're still finding that there are other pockets of people that do not know we're there. As a matter of fact, yesterday and today I went to the Eat Up program that's put on by the food bank, where the kids get free lunches every day, and try to put them outside and get a little bit of exercise. Of those 15 families I saw, not one of them knew about fish. And I attribute it to, one is kind of the area that they come from. They're not necessarily parents who get into the kids' backpacks and learn about us. So it's been quite rewarding to be able to let them know what's going on. But our building we've already outgrown it in trying to warehouse not only the amount of food that we need for helping this many people, but we also do Christmas baskets for over 200 families. We do Christmas baskets for veterans. We do them for seniors. We do a back-to-school program. We hand out backpacks and clothing and supplies to get back to school. And we also do a clothes closet where we hand out clothes to probably 600 kids a year, where they come in once a month and up to grade 12 and get free clothing. So fish has a tremendous impact on our less fortunate neighbors in this community, and that abatement or abandonment would certainly help us be able to, as we are thinking and designing, it would open up the space in the back where people could come in, drive by to get their food, not quite as fast as McDonald's or anything, but at least, to keep a traffic flow so that we're not worried about that. It will help cut our costs down for our driveway or parking lot. But more importantly, it will reach more people that we know are going to continue using our services. And we would ask that you support us in this. And if we can do anything else to help make that process happen, we'd appreciate it. But we appreciate also the support that we've had from Scott Bennett and other people on the board and in the community for fish and what it is that we do. So if you have any questions or concerns, let me know, and I'll talk at you or with you. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we are going to discuss this a little bit later in the meeting as far as that alleyway goes. And it's been an issue with our Point North Business District just to look at cleaning that up. It's at first we didn't even realize there was an alley there, and I'm not sure anybody did till we took a look at some old plat maps from long time ago and discovered that by darn there is an alley there. So we are going to take a look at what we can do to help on that. Okay. We got a special guest here tonight too. I don't know, we've got a young man here who, if you can stand up, Garrison, show everybody your police uniform there. We got Garrison here this evening, and he wanted to show the chief that he is all ready. Not quite ready to swear him in, but getting close, right there, Chief? Okay. Yeah. Yeah, it has been a tough week for police with the unfortunate shooting with our sheriff deputy just south of us in Oakland County that want to keep his family in our thoughts too. It's a horrible situation. So with that, we're going to move on to a privileged presentation. The board will hear a presentation of the fiscal year 2023 annual comprehensive financial report by the auditors from Plant Moran and consider a motion to accept the annual comprehensive financial report as presented. Good evening.
Good evening. It's nice to be with you again today. My name is Keith Szymanski. I'm a principal with Plant Moran in our governmental practice. You're probably accustomed to seeing Dave Helisek here as well. Dave and I had 2 township meetings to cover at the exact same time this evening, so we did rock, paper, scissors, and I won, so I got to be here with you today. And I'm happy to say quite a bit of good news coming out of the audit. It's a clean audit report, lots that the township should be proud of, and I think the financials tell a good story of a community that's not only providing a high level of service on a daily basis, but addressing capital needs in order to provide that high level of service and legacy costs as well. So we'll go into the details in the graph presentation in a bit, but I wanted to start off by pointing out the annual comprehensive financial report did once again receive an unmodified opinion from us, the auditors. That's the highest level of assurance we can provide to a set of financial statements. It's a clean audit report and lets the readers know that they can rely on the numbers that follow. So as we get into the graph presentation, which summarizes the 110-page financial statement document, we start off with a three-year history of general fund revenue. So total revenue for 2023 was $20.3 million, which is up about 7% from a year ago. As you can see, property taxes remain the largest single category of revenue for the general fund. They make up 54% of the total, and they increased about 4% from 2022 due to taxable value increases throughout the township. State sources, which is primarily state shared revenue, is the second largest source of revenue, just under a quarter of the total revenue in the general fund. That's down a bit compared to 2022 due to the fact that in 2022 the township received a census adjustment for the increased population in the 2020 census. So it made up a little bit of ground from the time between that census took place and when they were ultimately able to run the numbers and determine what everyone's fair share was. So overall, if that census adjustment were excluded, it would be a slight increase in sales tax revenue dispersed to the township. Also worth noting, interest revenue was positive for the year after a slight market adjustment in 2022. It was over $700,000, which is more than Grand Blanc or most other communities have seen in quite a long time due to better market performance and higher interest rates. Moving on to slide number 2, similar 3-year history of expenditures within the general fund. The total of $21.1 million is up about 18% compared to a year ago. The biggest increase was in the police department, and it's worth noting that 2023 included an additional $1 million pension contribution on top of what was already required. So that's part of the story that I mentioned of addressing legacy costs. In total, public safety expenditures were 55% of the total within the general fund, which is typical and what we commonly see as that being the largest category of expenditures for a local unit of government. On slide number 3, we put the year's expenditures side by side with unassigned fund balance for the general fund. So total fund balance ended the year at $5.3 million. It's broken out into a few categories. A portion of it is non-spendable because it's already in the form of prepaid expenditures. There are some amounts restricted due to millages for mosquito spraying and tree replacement, as well as $1.1 million that's assigned for retirement benefits. So a signal to the readers of the financial statements that the township expects to spend an additional $1.1 million on those benefits going forward. What's left after those categories is $3.4 million of unassigned fund balance. This has no restrictions or dedications as to how it can be spent. It's available for future operations. And it's important to note that that makes up about 16% of current year expenditures. So a healthy amount of unassigned fund balance on hand to deal with potential emergencies, capital needs, or other needs that arise or other operations that the township wishes going forward. That's essentially your rainy day fund that carries over the savings account from one year to the next.
And what is the appropriate amount in that? Is that?
That's a good amount to have. Typically, at least a couple months' worth of expenditures on hand, which would put you in the range of 15 or 16%, which is what you have. And again, that's excluding the $1 million that's assigned, that's a plan, but not a required spending going forward. So that there's flexibility there as well.
We have a policy on the amount, right? It's
Yeah, our policy says that we'll always keep 12 to 15% in our general fund balance expenditures. We kept it a little bit higher for the last couple of years just because of the volatility in the market. And our recommendation when we met with the audit team was to keep it above that 15% threshold, and we did do that.
Whoops.
So we move on to slide number 4. This slide is here to tell a little bit of a different story beyond just the $20 or so million that's collected and spent out of the general fund each year, but that there's actually quite a bit more that comes through the township. Some of it is kept and spent on other purposes, some passed along to other entities. So besides the general fund activity, there are capital projects and other governmental funds, including solid waste and parks and recreation, as well as the DPW department and DPW fund that handles water and sewer activities. The township also collects $61 million of property taxes for other entities. So all in all, in 2023, the township handled over $113 million of total receipts. And so tremendous credit to the township for administering all of those resources in a responsible basis and without any audit findings this year. It's a good segue into the next slide where we show a pie chart of the taxes collected by the township and the entity that's ultimately able to spend those. So although there may be a misconception that taxpayers pay their entire property tax bill to the township and that it's spent by the township, in actuality, the township keeps just 19% of the total taxes collected by a taxpayer in the township of Grand Blanc. The rest of it goes to schools, the county, and other taxing authorities. So again, I think this illustrates that the township is doing quite a bit with a very limited amount of resources, which is the case for many local units of government, but townships in particular in terms of how they're limited in the number of mills they can levy, and the increases that they receive. Even when real estate market is doing very well, the increases that the township receives in terms of property taxes is very much limited, pretty much just to inflationary increases. And in fact, even in high inflation times, it's limited to no more than 5%. So there are a lot of constraints on the resources that come into the township. And on top of that, as this slide shows, only a fraction of what taxpayers pay is kept by the township and spent for their purposes. Next two slides are new if you think back to previous slide presentations to go over the audit. But again, I think these two slides that address the defined benefit pension plan and the retiree health care plan overall tell a good story and a good trend of what's been taking place at the township over the last several years. So on this first slide, we're starting off focused on the pension plan. Many ways to look at this and a lot of information on it, but number one, the bars in total are the total liability as measured by the actuary. So they take all of the census information related to both active and current retirees and estimate the present value of all the benefits that they've earned to date. And so that adds up to more than approximately $35 million. And the blue bar represents how much of that is funded by current assets in the MERS trust. And so that adds up to about $22.6 million. This is measured as of December 31st, 2022, which at the time we did the audit was the most recent valuation coming from MERS. So it is on a one-year lag. As you may recall, 2022 was a down year for the market. So that plan net position did decrease by a couple $1 million due to investment losses. The funded ratio decreased from 74% to 65%. But again, I want to reiterate, that's at the end of 2022. 2023 was a positive year. I know the most recent valuation was just recently received, and it shows a funded percentage in the low 70s. So much of those losses from 2022 have already been made up to date. But even more so than where you currently stand, is that's just a snapshot in time, is the trend, which is that the funded ratio is increasing. And that's largely due to the fact that in 2023, the township contributed an additional $1 million on top of what was required by the actuary, and the township has made similar excess contributions in previous years as well. So that's really the key to getting ahead on this funded ratio. For the communities and governments that we see only making the required contribution, their funded ratio has largely held steady for the last several years. Some years they'll make up some ground and see some market gains, and then there's an adjustment to the assumption that increases the liability, or down year in the market like in 2022, and they find themselves right back to where they were. So again, this is a credit to the board and management of the township for really being dedicated to carving out some additional dollars from the annual budget to address these legacy costs. These are benefits that have already been earned by current and past employees, and it's the liability that has to be addressed at one point or another. And the responsible thing is to address it as soon as possible. Finally, on slide number 7, we've got a similar graph for the defined benefit OPEB plan. OPEB is other post-employment benefits, and we're primarily talking about retiree health care here. Again, there's a similar record of contributing more than what's required in a given year. And in particular, over the last few years, the funded ratio has increased significantly. So if you were to go back just to 2018, the funded ratio was 24%. A couple years ago, it was actually over 100%. 2022 losses set it back a little bit, but it's still at 96% as of the end of 2023. So essentially a fully funded plan, which is a tremendous credit again to the township for being dedicated to making these contributions particularly for a retiree health care plan where the city would, or excuse me, the state would consider anything more than 40% to be adequately funded as of today. To be near or at 100% really is a best-in-class plan, particularly one of this size. So more good news for the township, and something that we're happy to report on. That's all I had planned to go over in terms of the financial results. There are a couple other reports that we're issuing as part of the audit. I'm not going to go into them in great detail because there's not a lot of news in them. There is one letter that's new this year. It's due to an examination we had to perform on the township's ARPA spending. So because that exceeded $750,000, we were required to test compliance with the federal guidelines. So in fact, the more than $2 million that was spent in 2023, we did extensive testing on. We had no exceptions to note, and that's a clean audit report on the ARPA spending, which is great news. And then lastly, we have our annual end of audit letter addressed to the Board of Trustees and management of the township. Section 1 are required communications, which is essentially a follow-up on the planned letter we sent out at the beginning of the audit. There's really no exceptions in there. There were no difficulties encountered in performing the audit, no disagreements with management, no misstatements that we identified as part of the audit. And then lastly, Section 2 are just legislative and informational items that are not specific to Grand Blanc, but we thought were noteworthy as well. So we leave those with you for your consideration. What's most noteworthy is what's not in that letter, which is any internal control related matters, material weaknesses or significant deficiencies that we often identify as part of an audit. The threshold for having to report those is fairly low. If we have significant adjustments that we identify as part of the audit, it typically winds up in that section. If there are issues with segregation of duties or bank reconciliations not being performed timely, those end up in that section of the letter, but we have none of those items to report. There are no internal control deficiencies whatsoever included in this letter. So that's a tremendous credit, and I want to thank Kathy, Chantel, the finance department, and others throughout the township that we worked with to go through this audit process. We're out here for a few weeks. We ask a lot of questions and have a lot of requests. They were very responsive and helpful throughout the audit, and major contributors to this clean audit report and all the good news today. So I'll stop there and entertain any questions if there are any.
Yes, Dennis?
The one thing to point out is that you guys normally would have the hard copies of the audit at this point. It's like 110 pages. Could have printed off the preliminary for you, but they just weren't delivered at this time. So you guys will be getting them. They should probably be here any day. And when we do, we'll make sure that you guys actually get those. And then if you're in your review, if you have any questions, obviously Kathy and Chantel will be happy to answer any questions you may have, as well as myself, or Keith would always be available by phone or by conference to address any concerns that the board may have once you see the full copy of the annual comprehensive financial report.
Okay. I think in the packet there is quite a bit of information as well.
Yep.
So, any questions?
Where would this audit rank, like in a percentile, as far as being good, compared to other
Yeah,
municipalities?
specifically just the fact that there were no findings. I think last time we checked, about half of the audits have some sort of finding. And they range in terms of significance. The fact that we also did the federal compliance audit with the ARPA spending and that was clean would set it even higher above that. So I couldn't give you a specific number, but certainly in the well above the middle of the pack and probably in the top 20 or 30%.
I heard the words best in class for part of it.
Best in class.
I like that.
Absolutely.
No, I think it's, the information shows, especially with the retirement funds and the OPEB, that, just looking at the trend there, it's unbelievable where we've been, where we,
That's big credit to Dennis and Kathy and their team.
Yeah. yeah. In
If I
fact,
could add a little commentary to that too. These audits are not getting any easier. There's new auditing standards every year. This was the second year in a row in which there was one that required quite a bit of work, even though not a major impact on the financial statements. But the finance team worked through that, provided us the information necessary. We didn't have any issues with that. The strings attached to the ARPA spending, as well as other grants and money flowing through from other governments, gets more and more complicated. So there's a lot more work to be done and I's to dot and T's to cross as part of every audit. And the township continues to do a great job maintaining the books and records.
Any questions, any concerns? I'm just glad we have people that love doing that kind of stuff and
Absolutely.
love those audits. But we have Kathy here. If you guys would stand up from our finance department and be recognized. Yeah, all three of them. Yeah. And for those that aren't aware, it is no fun task. Your team is here, probably 4 or 5 individuals are here for at least 2 weeks, maybe 3. And the amount of work that goes in prior to the audit that our staff is doing and even after your staff is here is just immense. And when we're dealing with this kind of, dollar figure, 100 million, what have you, you can imagine all the tracking that has to take place. But it's fabulous that it comes back, as good as, clean on all of it, ARPA, our regular funds, all that. So thank you very much to our finance department for that great work to make us shine and be able to move forward on so many other projects besides worrying about making sure that we have our checks and balances. So thank you very much for the report, and we need a motion if we want to accept this report as presented. Somebody care to make? Okay. Dr. Reardon makes the motion, supported by Treasurer Kilmer.
Okay, motion by Raridan, supported by Kilmer to accept the report. Trustee White?
Yes.
Trustee Hugo?
Yes.
Trustee Raridan?
Yes.
Treasurer Kilmer?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Supervisor Bennett?
Yes.
6-0, motion passes.
Okay, thank you very much. At this time, I'll entertain a motion for approval of the consent agenda. If somebody cares to make that motion. Ms. Hugo makes the motion,
Okay, Hugo, motion on the consent agenda,
supported by Treasurer Kilmer.
supported by Kilmer on the consent agenda. Okay, Trustee White?
Yes.
Trustee Raridan?
Yes.
Trustee Hugo?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Treasurer Kilmer?
Yes.
Supervisor Bennett?
Yes.
6-0, motion passes.
Okay. At this time, Clerk Robertson, I think you have something you would like.
Yes, I would like to share something. Thank you very much for granting me this moment during our agenda. I am so very, very pleased and thrilled to take a moment here at this board meeting to draw attention to the fact that my deputy clerk, Lynn Henry, was last Thursday selected by the Michigan Association of Municipal Clerks as the Deputy Clerk of the Year in Michigan. She was nominated by myself and the president of the organization, Jacqueline Beaudry, the MAMC president, and was elected chosen by her colleagues all over the state of Michigan, and was honored with this award last Thursday at our municipal conference in Traverse City. And I'm reading from the news release that was issued. The Michigan Association of Municipal Clerks honors Grand Blanc Township Deputy Clerk Lynn Henry as the 2024 Deputy Clerk of the Year. It was issued by Michael Segrist, the chair of the Clerk of the Year Committee. It speaks to everything that Lynn has done. You've heard me sing her praises repeatedly over the last 3+ years, but I'm happy to sing again. Lynn, most recently, she volunteered the township for the early voting pilot program in November 2023. She presented to the MAMC Masters Academy following the November 2023 election, and was a resource to clerks in the February presidential primary statewide implementation of early voting. What this means is that she's teaching every clerk in the state of Michigan about early voting. And it was her, the respect and confidence that the state of Michigan and the MAMC has in her that led to us getting the early voting, being part of the early voting pilot program last November. Lynn's pilot experience is just another great example of her leadership, commitment to her voters, and her dedication to the profession and education of our members. That's just a small part. I'm getting teary-eyed here, but it really is deserve. She's deserving of all the praise we can give her. I also want to acknowledge the other members of my clerk staff that are here, Michelle Dedolph and Reagan Henry, who are part and parcel of the work that we do here. And Lynn would be the first to acknowledge that your help is key to her success as well, as are the other staff here at the township who help pitch in election time to help. So this is an extraordinary award. It is one that is so well deserved. And I just wanted to bring it to the board's attention and to the citizenry's attention and all those that are going to view this film in the future, this video of our board meeting in the future. So Lynn Henry, MAMC Deputy Clerk of the Year. The people of Grand Blanc Township are so well served by her. Yay. Say a few words, Lynn.
Thank you.
Lynn had a phenomenal speech at the event. I know it was very well attended, right, Dave?
Yes, it was. Hundreds, everybody from all over the state was there.
And Lynn did a fabulous job representing us as well.
It's not, I'm very humbled by this, to be honest. And none of it would be possible without the support of you, Scott, especially Dennis and Dave and the rest of the board. But the support here at Grand Blanc Township is phenomenal. You know, I know who I can reach out to. I have some very wonderful cheerleaders here at the township, and they know who they are. And I'm very appreciative, though, for the support. I have really grown in the last 2 years by being on the board, but just you guys give me the opportunity to grow, be a part of Genesee County, be the president, be a part of the MAMC, and Grand Blanc Township is definitely on the face now with the state of Michigan, getting close with the FBI, CISA, all these other little groups I have been invited to now to sit on different panels. And so I really, truly do appreciate all of you, though, for the support. None of it could be done. And it does take a village to run an election, and I have a fantastic village here between, you know, the treasurer's office helping us, their staff, DPW, anyone that I come across, if I need something across the office, you know, Melissa's always there to help. Assessing always offers to help. So I have the police department to back me up, you know, I have fire department. It takes everyone, and I could go on and name, but it's basically every department here does help in some way to make our election. So it's just not, you know, myself doing this. As you guys know, right in the middle of election right now, that's why we're here tonight. But it takes a whole group, and we have a wonderful group here. So I'm very appreciative, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Lynn. Well, the clerk's department is one of those departments that, you know, maybe some departments we could have a mistake once in a while, but with elections, nobody wants any mistakes, and you guys do a phenomenal job of making sure that that's the case here in Grand Blanc Township. So, again, thank you to all of you, Clerk Robertson, your staff. You guys are doing a fabulous job.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor,
Thanks.
for giving me the
Yes.
opportunity to recognize Lynn publicly for her.
Absolutely.
And the rest of the staff.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to our next item under old business is the board will consider a motion to approve the revised agreement for $251,183.70 with the Genesee County Road Commission for the rehabilitation of Cook Road, which will be from Embury to Holly, and authorize the supervisor to sign the document. Now, I have to say that I was at a meeting, I think it was last week, where Mr. Lehman sprung on me. He's like, hey, you didn't hear the news from the Road Commission? And I said, no, what's that? And he told me they had decided to hold off. I'm like, they can't. But luckily, he was just joking, but he about gave me a heart attack when he told me that. So this is a road everybody's been waiting to have done, and obviously it's going to cost a lot more than this because they're going to rebuild it. But Mr. Boggs, you're here to give us the good news on Cook Road.
Yes, so, good evening, everyone. Director Cooley was under the weather, and so I'm filling in for him tonight.
Sure.
So it went out for bid. Zito Construction got it. There's just a differing in the pricing. So the road commission decided to save money and run it to their internal systems and did a 90% buyback on the federal funding for the project, which means our allocation has gone up. So this is an overage on it, and like I said, we can come under budget. It'll probably be less than this, but we have to do this to get this project rolling. So it'll be a difference of $71,184 that would be increased on our share as of right now. I did have a chance to talk to the road commission, so did Superintendent Lima today. But we're sure that, like I said, right now it hasn't kicked off, but we should come back under, hopefully. So.
From a funding standpoint, we had used our allocation funds. Every year, we allocate that 50/50 allocation of $180,000. We did the entire thing towards this project, and because it was the most pressing need that we had, and combining with federal funds, obviously, and this is a very important road from Embry to Holly Road, and probably one of the worst roads in the township. So coming back, when they sent us this notice to say that our new cost was going to be $251,000, it's because like Assistant Director Boggs had said, they made the decision to convert that MDOT funds to 90% so that they don't have to run it through MDOT. They're going to be able to do it locally. Better management of the road is great, save some money, but it means our cost went up slightly by $70,000 or just over. They're splitting that cost with us, so we are using it as allocation funds. We are going to have it as allocated funds and a 50/50 allocation. It's just that it's an additional $70,000 over and above what we had put into our budget for 2024. So that's why it requires a board motion to authorize the township supervisor to sign it and move forward. I know how important this road is because we've certainly fielded the questions on why it's taken us so long to do it. I assured the road commission, Alex, when I spoke with him today, that I assumed the board would approve it and we would move forward based upon the importance of that road as a major connector for Grand Blanc Township.
Well, the big question that everybody's asking is, when is it going to start? I know originally they told me before 4th of July. We have somebody here.
What was that?
So everybody's planning on by the 4th of July, right? I don't see any orange barrels out there yet.
No,
so-
but it went out for bid. The contract has been awarded. Well,
We'll officially
be awarded.
July 9th, and we'll have a pre-construction meeting after that. Mid-July.
All right.
Sorry to put you on the spot, but you showed up.
Okay. So mid-July, okay.
Todd is with whom? And what's your last name, Todd?
Bigler, B-I-G-L-E-R.
Bigler. Okay, Mr. Bigler, thank you very much.
Do they call you if they want the timeline moved up, or? I'm kidding. Okay. All right. I hear you. Well, we're pleased that somebody locally got the bid. I think that'll work out well, and I'm sure they'll do a great job. So, anybody have any thoughts or concerns on this? Okay, you're making the motion, Ms. Hugo? Okay, Ms. Hugo makes the motion.
Hugo makes the motion.
Supported by,
I'll make, I'll
Treasurer
support. Okay, Mr. Treasurer Kilmer, very good. Trustee Hugo.
Yes.
Trustee Raridan.
Yes.
Trustee White.
Yes.
Treasurer Kilmer.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Supervisor Bennett.
yes.
6-0, motion passes.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Thank you very much for being here, too. Okay, we're looking forward to that. Okay, next on the agenda is our strategic plan update, and we're going to be discussing code enforcement, and we have Mr. Smith with us this evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So I was asked to come in and do a strategic plan update on code enforcement. With me today, I have one of my officers, Patrick Brady. I'm not sure if the board has met Mr. Brady before, but the other two officers could not make it this evening, so I apologize for that. But with the help of Mr. Brady and the other two officers, code enforcement is flourishing. We are taking care of a lot of blight, and a lot of grass complaints, and it is in full swing right now. The Eyes and Ears program that we've kind of discussed with other departments is in full swing as well. It's working very well, especially with the assessing department. They're the ones out there more so in the field than everybody else, along with my code officers. So we're excited to be cleaning up Grand Blanc, and we're excited that everything that we've put forth before you and all the zoning amendment changes, are working. They're not chasing their tails anymore. They can focus on things that need to be taken care of, and they can take care of them swiftly. So,
So one area was, we'll talk about is the grass mowing.
yes,
Does that include backyards too?
yes.
Okay.
So just so you know, last year alone, there was 57 items billed, just billed, not just
Warning.
violations that were warnings. People did comply, but we actually had 57 ones that were actually billed to the tune of $23,000.
Wow.
Out of that, though, only 3,600 of that dollars went on taxes, and only 1,750 is delinquent still. So people are complying. They're not happy about it, but they're complying. So the changes are being made, and they're working. So.
What's the pattern so far this year?
So far this year, well, last year we had 89% compliance overall, not just lawn mowing, but every complaint. We had 639 complaints last year, code violations last year, and 567 of those were brought into compliance. So 89% compliance. So this year, I mean, we're in the swing of things right now because of lawn mowing, other blight complaints, and just put it on the record that we do not acknowledge no mow may. So going forward.
So what are the toughest ones that you get in terms of code enforcement?
I'd say blight. Blight is usually the toughest. It takes a little longer sometimes to get compliance. Sometimes it's not as easy as cleaning up their yard and picking up trash. It could be the gutters are falling down, the siding's falling off. They've got big items in the backyard, trucks, cars, boats that need to be yanked out.
Is there a number of cars and boats that somebody can have in their backyard?
There's no official number, no, but if they're dilapidated, then we have every authority to remove them. So tires need to be aired up. They can't be full of moss. They can't be
What about
overgrown.
Yeah. What about swimming pools that are no longer used that that are in ground or even above ground? Are there any regulations, any ordinances with regard to that? I've had
Yes.
somebody that has an old pool that the neighbors are concerned that it's breeding, millions of mosquitoes.
Yes,
and-
property maintenance code does address that, and we have taken care of a couple of those already this year, and one we had to put a fence around because the homeowner decided that they were having a dispute with the contractor. The contractor put in the pool, but then they didn't put any fence that's required by the permit. So we had to take them to court and get a court injunction, and then we had to put up a fence for health and safety reasons, because it was an in-ground pool.
Okay. What other questions or concerns?
How many times do you send out a letter to somebody if their lawn is too high? I mean, do you send it out once? Is that good for the year? I mean,
Currently, they get 2, just like any other violation notice.
after 2,
Then we send it to our mowing company.
no matter, so if you get 2 by June, which I don't know if you would, by September, if they didn't, let's say you send it out to the company, September it grows again, you give them another letter, or?
We start the process all over again. Each time there's a complaint, yes.
So there's a little bit of chasing your tail with that then when we have.
There's some suggestions that I have for the board that we can discuss at a later time, but there's some ways that we can fix it.
Okay. All right.
Sorry.
I'd like to hear what these ideas are, since you're here.
In my opinion, we could change it to what I'd call a one and done. You get one warning the first of the year, your first warning, and then after that, no more warnings. Our letters would be worded as such that you understand how much the fee is going to be, how much time you have, this is your only warning, you won't be warned again, and then we'll send it directly to the mowing company. Much quicker turnaround.
Are you having more issues with residential instead of commercial, I'm assuming?
Yeah, I'd say so. It'd be probably 80-20.
Yeah, the majority is residential.
Yep.
More issues with owner occupied versus rentals?
We really don't know, right?
I mean, we do, it's if half and half, you think? Okay, about half and half.
Sort of disproportionately rentals are, I mean, the one across from my house is, I think you may have sent somebody to mow the yard. So,
Yep. And just to remind the board, we are complaint-driven, so if there's a complaint that keeps popping up, please let us know. And then once it becomes a problem child, we'll definitely keep a better eye on those things.
Yeah, so the residents, they get frustrated because it's like, hey, we've turned this guy in or this person in, a couple of times already this summer, and the grass keeps getting knee high, and we have to explain to them, well, every time you call us, we got to give them, we got to go out and measure it, we got to send them a letter, then we got to wait 10 days, and then, they comply. Well, sometimes they comply on the 9th day, and then they let it go for 2 weeks, and then we're out there doing it again. So I think we need to look at how we handle this so that it's using up staff time, and that's tax dollars when we have people going out there to measure, sending out a letter, talking on the phone with residents who are fed up. And it's just kind of like this cycle. And in the past, we had people that they used us as a lawn mowing service, basically, until we upped the fee. Now, maybe they cut it, but, maybe only have to cut it a few times during the summer because guess what? They wait till they get the letter and then they cut it.
8 inches is the threshold.
What's that?
8 inches is the threshold for
Right.
when we can go after them. Yeah.
So I think we need to look at that. But, yes,
Can you
Ms. Hugo.
remind the public exactly what the charge is if we have to go out and mow your lawn?
$350 per acre.
And actually, that's not the highest from what I've heard in the county either, but,
No. We are not a lawn service, nor do we want to be a lawn service, so we
Right.
hope that this encourages people to mow their own yard.
right, or to find somebody to mow it for them.
Find somebody to mow it, yes.
My lawn service charges me $55 a week to mow the lawn. I'm just saying, it's a lot cheaper than $350. Is that for like a third of it? If a person has a third of an acre, do you prorate it or?
No.
Or it just,
$350 the minimum, and then every acre after that is an additional $350.
oh, wow.
Sarah? Yeah, go ahead, Ms. Hugo.
So sorry. But what if someone receives a letter and then they are compliant with their front yard, but they're not compliant with the backyard?
The understanding is the whole yard.
So does code enforcement check out the backyard? Okay.
We've been having a few issues with miscommunication with our mowing company as well, so that may have led to some problems, so. we will be rectifying that.
Thank you.
I've heard some complaints about some backyards that they thought it was just maybe the front yard, but, so.
And I think Trustee Hugo brings up a good point, and that is, and you also heard from Trustee White, they've got some in their neighborhood that are repeat violators, right? And so what can we do differently? And I think that lends a conversation. I know David, he had a solution that they were using in Davison Township, but how does that apply to Grand Blanc Township? Does it apply to Grand Blanc Township? Is it something that we can do to make sure, because these repeat offenders that, you just heard out of, 6 people out of, board members, you got 2 who are experiencing it in their own neighborhoods with repeat offenders. And if we're gonna, one of the things we want to do is make sure we're consistent, fair across the board, and we take care of it, right? So what can we do differently?
Well, we're currently in the process of exploring what all our options are. And some of the key concepts that I'm worried about as an attorney is I want to make sure that people have fair notice. I want to make sure that that our fee actually approximates the administrative efforts that go into having people observe, having people write reports, send out notices, contract with the mowing company. By the time you get all these touches of people throughout this building and also the mowing company, it turns out that price that seems exorbitant is actually a pretty good approximation of what it truly costs once you go through all these channels. So we're concerned about making sure that the fee is a recovery, adequate recovery for the township, but also it turns out that it's punitive for the property owner, which we want because we don't want people using us as a lawn service. The final element to it is I want to make sure that with a minimal amount of court involvement, we're able to take whatever amounts that we spend on a piece of property, and we can recover that through the taxes. And so that is the balance that we're going through. We're balancing notice and then the ability to place the amount on the tax roll of the property with efficiency. And so we're gonna have a little more discussion about that, I think, at a closed session tonight. But Mr. Smith's laid out a possible option for us that's used in a neighboring community, and we just want to make sure that we're doing everything that is we're being most efficient with our process, but we're also being abundantly legally safe. Because the one thing we don't want to do is go out and start spending money on properties and not being able to recover it. Because if somebody has, there are certain limited situations where we can put expenses on taxes without following through the proper tax procedures and the Headley Act and things like that. So it's not as easy as it seems. And while everybody wants to have, on the enforcement side, everyone wants to be able to go to have these things solved immediately, we need to make sure that we've got all the steps, we got due process built in there.
So we will talk about this a little bit more in a little while here. Okay, anything else you'd like to share right now? You guys are doing a fabulous job.
All credit to these guys and Amy. They're the ones in the field doing the heavy lifting and inspecting all these places. It's not me. I'm just inside helping with paperwork, so.
Well, the great thing is, I tell people, when I'm speaking with residents, that our goal is to get compliance. It isn't to give out, tickets to people. And, sometimes it's a matter of educating people on what our standards are. And really, that's what it is. I mean, is our community has decided to have a certain level of standard of care of their property. And, what our code enforcement people do, they don't go out there with a heavy hand, but they talk to them about what our standards are and try to get people in compliance. If they decide that they're not going to like our standards, then we do have a process for going to court or issuing a ticket, what have you. Dr. Reardon?
We're going to anger people no matter what on that. With
Yeah,
the standard. But,
right.
The question, the signs, those about
Snipe signs? Yes.
So, and this might be right to Mr. Laddie here. If a resident sees a snipe sign on a, let's say, a telephone pole, can they just take that out? Because I had a question, and they could just remove that themselves.
So the one thing that is, and people take advantage of this all the time, is they put, and I'm glad we have someone from the road commission here too, because they take advantage of the right-of-ways of the road commission and public roads. And nobody has a right to put anything in those right-of-ways. And so if you put something up there and then someone else takes it down, you have no recourse. It wasn't supposed to be there in the first place. If there's a sign on private property, then you can't go around taking people's signs of private property. But in the right-of-way, you're free, anybody's free to remove those.
Okay.
A
Maybe you
question.
could just throw them away then.
Yeah.
Essentially, right? Okay.
So with regard to grass mowing, I don't know, how do we handle that when somebody has a locked gate, in the backyard or fenced in and it's locked? How do we handle?
Some of those, we may have to get a injunction to get the lock removed so we can get the mowing company back there. If it's open and they can get in there, but if we're told to leave, we need to leave. We're not gonna put
Ourselves in jeopardy?
or
Yeah.
ourselves in jeopardy.
Okay.
Over lawn mowing, so.
Right. Okay, so there is recourse if.
There is, yes.
I just had somebody ask me that question as well, so.
I'll just say something real quick. Since
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Officers, and I'd like to thank you. It is a privilege to serve this community. I grew up here my whole life in Grand Lake Township. And as Supervisor Bennett has said, our goal when we go into the community is not to be heavy-handed, it's not to be overreaching, but we do have a community here with standards, and I tell this to people on the phone on a weekly basis. You move to Grand Blanc because we are a community with standards. And through effective communication, we're able to convey that, even to the angriest person. We've had success just opening the dialogue with them. Sometimes it takes us on their door, sometimes it takes a letter, sometimes it takes a citation. But our goal is voluntary compliance. We don't like to go out there and write these tickets. Very few of them go there. I tell people all the time, thank you for calling, it's nice. We wanted to have this dialogue. And through explaining our position to them, we're able to achieve the goal and then ultimately help them understand why it is we're doing what we're doing. So that's our goal when we go out there. I know that's your vision, and that's what we try to,
And, I appreciate people caring. The people that call us and say, hey, I'm concerned about this or what have you. And it's great to live in a community where people are not apathetic towards that type of thing. And, there's plenty of communities that they can move to that allow just about anything. And I'm not saying that we're being heavy-handed with what we're doing in terms of not allowing things, but there's some things we allow and some things we don't. But it's, if the community wants to change their standards, they can come to our meeting and voice their concern. We have changed things in the past, things like where they can park their trailer and when. So we are open.
It's made a huge difference for them too. They're not chasing their tail on that. That's had a huge success. We've only had a handful of people who have actually complained about that. And that's made a big difference on what they can and can't do out in the field on a daily basis.
Well, then it frees up their time to go after the stuff that the majority are concerned about. Well, you guys do a fabulous job, though, Patrick and the rest of the staff there. You guys, you come in the morning and they're getting ready to go out and hit the road, and whether it's pulling up signs or talking to residents, but it's not the easiest job in the world to have to go and knock on somebody's door and talk to them about something that is out of place. And I give you guys so much credit for doing that with a smile and getting compliance from people. So thank you.
Credit to them. I used to do that as my job, and I know what it takes to do that out in the field. My 3 officers make my job so much more easy.
Fabulous. Well, thank you, and pass it along to the others that aren't here.
Yes, we will.
call us anytime. You guys can reach out to us directly.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Okay,
New business, Mr.
anything else, Mr. Lematon? Code enforcement?
Nope.
Laddie? That's it. Okay. Moving on to new business, the board will consider a motion for the purchase of a UVT M30T drone for $17,879.12 and authorize the township superintendent to execute all documents, contracts, and purchase orders. Chief Rennie.
Good evening. I really feel like this is like an employee appreciation night. And I'm going to call Sergeant Tim Beakey up here also. So they always say, if you have great, competent people, just give them a task, move over, and get out of the way. And that's pretty much what we did here when we reached out for the drone program. So Sergeant Beakey, he ended up going to different vendors, reaching out to them, and coming up with the right fit for us. So Sergeant Beakey did a great job, as well as Officer McTaggart, who we tasked with this project. But first off, I'd like to say that this isn't just...
You can move the microphone over, getting some people not hearing.
Sergeant Beakey will answer any questions that you guys may have about the drone specifically. But first off, I'd like to say that really this isn't just a police department drone. So this is what I would consider a public safety drone. The police department will be in control of it. We will have the operators, to fly that unit who are specifically trained to operate this specific model drone. But we have reached out to Chief Burdett from the fire department, asking him if there'd be any legitimate use that he would also have for this particular drone. And he said instantly yes. So there was a fire down at Woodfield to where he said a drone would have drastically came in handy. There was a citizen who had a drone that he had to utilize, and they could identify certain hot spots, that the fire department was still having to put out. So this drone will have that purpose as well. So as far as the law enforcement aspect of it, we'll utilize this for rescue missions, such as missing persons. We'll also utilize this for criminal apprehension, so somebody that bails out of a car, which we had about 2 months ago. 3 people bailed out during a pursuit. We had to call a K-9 unit who came from Argentine, which was 20 minutes later. We had set up the perimeter. We had 2 out of the 3 in custody. So this here particular unit is a rapid deployment unit, so meaning that we could take it out of the box, rapidly deploy that within 5 minutes and have our perimeter set up. The drone operator would then be able to radio out to those who are set up on the perimeter, where the suspect is at or the potential missing person. It's got infrared technology. It's also got a speaker and a nice bright spotlight that accompanies this, and I believe 6 different batteries. So we could take that down from the sky, pop the battery in, and that's right back up there. That's all I have.
So Ally Challenge, the state police utilized a drone, right, in the past, or?
Yes, sir, they do. Yes. There is several drones within the county already, so there's a couple other police agencies that have a drone as well. But yeah, during the Ally Challenge, there's only specific drones could actually fly. So, and we got the equipment, or the MSP, Michigan State Police, they have equipment to identify drones that are unauthorized in that area.
So, for example, the concert in the evening, they could use it. There's quite a few, I don't know, 12,000 people or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Concert, so we can, in case there's an issue, see what's going on.
Yes.
What about accident reconstruction?
Yes, actually, Sergeant Beakey is in accident reconstruction, and he could speak as far as that goes.
Yeah.
Or go up to a microphone if you could, because we got people listening at home.
Thanks. Yeah, for accident reconstruction, it'd be great, actually. It would, we need to get a little bit of software. It sounds like I can do most of it with what we have right now. But if we launch it, we can fly it over a scene, and we could have a scene done in 30 minutes, which would take us 2 to 3 hours in the past. Which that's good for us. It's good for everybody. It allows us to open up roads faster, get people moving and, get everyone on with their day.
So with accident reconstruction, from what I understand, so let's say that on I-75 there's an accident, we end up having to shut down the expressway right now, and we have to take pictures, we have to take measurements, have people out there with a wheel or whatever, measuring skid marks, takes forever, but
yes,
with the drone, it can go up and it takes pictures that you can take the measurements from, and you can...
Yep. Yeah, basically it takes pictures that become a scale drawing of that scene at that time.
So you can open up the road at a much quicker...
Infinitely faster.
...pace and probably even have more accurate, or I wouldn't say more accurate, but...
at least just as accurate.
Yes. Okay. Clerk Robertson.
Couple of questions. How many of our officers are trained in the usage of the drone?
We're going to send 5.
Okay. And the information that you gather, for given for example, the illustration a moment ago, is this admissible in court? Are there ever evidentiary issues with regard to its usage?
For crash reconstruction, I mean, it's widely used for that, and so that would be admissible. Okay. And then anything else would be, to be honest with you, it's like a body camera.
Okay.
Yeah, so we would tie that to a particular case. So if say if it was for criminal apprehension, we would assign that a case number, and then we would drop that into our evidence.com software, where we store our digital evidence for court.
What different types of uses do you envision using it for?
So we frequently get called out for missing persons, probably a couple times a week. We could also assist other agencies who may request a drone, so that where we could respond and assist them. Police pursuits, suspicious activity. There was recently a suspicious call that went out in Knollwood the day after the pursuit for a couple of gentlemen cutting off catalytic converters. We could have rapidly deployed this system, find out exactly where they are at in the complex from the sky, and then divert our resources to right where they're at with this technology. So,
I got a question, Chief, in terms of policy for usage. Probably one of the concerns that people might have is what things, there will be clear policy on what this can be used for and what it can't be used for, correct?
Absolutely, and there's been case law that says what we can and cannot use that for. So we would utilize our policy and procedure to dictate our response for that.
So those probably are existing policies throughout the state with different agencies?
Yeah, there's several model policies, which we could obtain from the MACP or the IACP website and obtain a drone model
Will that
policy.
be part of the accreditation, you believe, making sure?
Drones are not a part of the accreditation through MACP just yet, but these are becoming more and more popular, so it wouldn't be surprising if eventually they end up becoming some sort of a standard within MACP.
Yeah, Dr. Reardon?
So, out of curiosity, how detailed, you said it'll map the scene. I mean, would it get like the yaw marks, or it would be that detailed?
It could be, depending on how dark they are, like we would have to mark them perhaps with paint. But if you mark them with, green paint works better with drones, but if we marked them with paint, then yes, unless they're extremely dark. But, you know, gouge marks in the pavement, we would have to mark them, because it'd be, from above.
So basically, then all the photos are going to be coming from the drone. Are you still going to have people take photos on the ground?
Yeah, probably. I mean, at least to some degree. But I mean, the drone would take. I mean, I've seen them where it would fly a scene and take, hundreds of photos, which is more than we could do. Ever. And it'll fly it. It flies a grid pattern. It flies higher, lower altitudes, and we can feed it into our crash program now. It'll make basically a 3D model of the scene and what was there, just as you would see it if you were standing there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, Mr. White?
There was a state Supreme Court case on drones within the last 2 months in regards to code enforcement. I'm just curious if, I know it's going to be operated by the police department, if maybe you think there would be any use for it for hard-to-reach properties? So maybe using it with code enforcement? I guess I don't really know. You're saying the police department's going to operate it, and that's fine, but it's not just going to be for police and fire.
Yeah, we're there to also assist our other departments within the township as well, if there's a need.
You may have answered this, but how many operators are you going to have?
5, yeah. Yeah, so they still would have to take the 107 tests. So our idea is, if this is passed today by the board, is to send those 5 potential operators who we've already identified within the police department to send them to training, and then right after that training, take the 107 tests, and then they would be fully certified to operate that particular drone.
So you plan on having one work at least per shift?
That's the idea, to have that drone always available in the car, ready to go for rapid deployment.
So the missing person, I was surprised by the number of missing person reports we get.
Yeah, there's always, somebody that maybe walked away from a senior living home where we have to go out to. They aren't missing, for quite some time, but we might have to search the area, or a missing child, that maybe escaped the backyard, maybe somebody with autism. So this would work well.
So that's where the thermal imaging would come in, what have you, could locate
Yes.
them through that?
Absolutely, yes.
And we have unfortunately had some deaths in years past when we couldn't find some
Right.
people.
And this will help out with those.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Certainly seems like a worthwhile expenditure, Mr. Supervisor. Is a motion in order?
Yes, it is.
And I will make that motion.
Okay. Supported by Dr. Reardon.
Supported by Raritan. Okay, on item 8A, Trustee Raritan.
Yes.
Trustee Hugo.
Yes.
Trustee White.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Treasurer Kilmer.
Yes.
Supervisor Bennett.
Yes.
6-0, motion passes.
Thank you. The board will consider a motion for the construction of a new pavilion at Creasy Bicentennial Park from Case Construction Company Incorporated for the amount of $36,328, and authorize the township superintendent to sign all related proposals, contracts, and documents. Mr. Kimmer.
So good evening, everyone. A couple of weeks ago, I gave you guys an update on the insurance. After the tornado damage, the insurance results from the park. This is another component of that. Last week we touched, or a couple weeks ago, we talked about the roof replacement. This is for the pavilion replacement of the Pondview Pavilion that was damaged, completely, totally destroyed by the tornado. Case Construction was the low bid on this one. We had a couple other bids that were north of $40,000. Case will also work with Lockhart Roofing to supply the same roofing material that's going to be on the other pavilions that are being replaced.
I believe they're local too.
Yeah, correct.
Okay, very good. Any questions? Making the motion, Ms. Hugo?
Motion by Hugo.
Yep.
Supported by?
Dr. Reardon.
Dr. Raridan. Very good. Supported by Raridan. Trustee White.
Yes.
Trustee Hugo.
Yes.
Trustee Raridan.
Yes.
Treasurer Kilmer.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Supervisor Bennett.
Yes.
6-0, motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item C, the board will consider a motion to approve Resolution 2424 for the approval of a Michigan Liquor Control Commission special license application for the Ally Challenge from August 19th through the 25th of 2024. Mr. Lemata?
This comes before the board annually. The Michigan Liquor Control Commission requires this specialty license to be issued to the co-applicants of Warwick Golf and Country Club, as well as the event coordinators. Again, there's just so that the Ally Challenge is able to, that's called Tournaments for Charity. They're able to sell alcohol on the grounds of Warwick Hills only during the week of the Ally Challenge. So again, same one you've seen before you. Every year we've held the Ally Challenge.
Any thoughts, questions?
Nope.
Ms.
I was
Hugo
gonna make
makes the motion,
Motion by Hugo,
supported by Mr. White.
supported by Mr. White. Trustee White.
Yes.
Trustee Raridan.
Yes.
Trustee Hugo.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Treasurer Kilmer.
Yes.
Supervisor Bennett.
Yes.
6-0, motion passes.
Thank you. Item D, the board will consider a motion to approve the contract modification to the existing compliance services contract for the Township's MS4 program from DLZ for $11,500 and authorize the Township Superintendent to execute all related contracts and documents. Mr. Boggs?
Good evening. This is a modification to a contract that the superintendent already approved. Back in February, we had an inspection by Eagle for our MS4 program. It's a municipal separate storm sewer program that's required by the state. Being a township, we're only in charge of our on-site storm sewer, where cities have, they own storm sewer. So a lot of it is public education and make sure we have good housekeeping and stuff. We do store salt out here. There's some sampling that we were never doing. DLZ manages not only now working with us, but City of Flint, Swartz Creek, a number of other municipalities, and they help with compliance. So it's not being a storm sewer municipality. It's kind of, we're still stewards of it, but our forte is sanitary sewer and drinking water. So this will help us get in compliance with Eagle and ongoing too. So I don't know if you have any questions.
Any questions? Mr. Lehman, anything to add?
No, this permit, and again, the MS4 program, I mean, we were contracted the county at first. We were running a bit of it ourselves. When we signed this contract, it's like, this isn't something that we take on as a DPW on our own. We need the assistance of outside consultants to come in and do this program to make sure that you can stay up on the ever-changing regulations that are required to do it. And again, like Mr. Boggs said, we have a very small operation for us, but it's not something that we are prepared to do on our own.
Well, we definitely want to be in compliance, so. Okay, Dr. Reardon makes the motion.
Raridan makes the motion.
Ms. Hugo supports it.
Ms. Hugo supports. On item 8D, Trustee Hugo.
Yes.
Trustee Raridan.
Yes.
Trustee White.
Yes.
Treasurer Kilmer.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Supervisor Bennett.
Yes.
6-0, motion passes.
Thank you.
Thanks. Item E, the board will consider a motion to approve the purchase of 7 sets of protective PPE from Dingus Fire for $31,166.38, and authorize the township superintendent to sign all purchase and warranty contracts. Chief Burdette?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Earlier this year, the fire department received an award or a grant from Firehouse Subs to purchase 7 sets of turnout gear for a total of $31,166.38. We received the money already, and I'm asking for approval to purchase the equipment.
Yes.
Well,
Treasurer
is this-
Kilmer.
This protective equipment, or can you
This is-
explain the nature of it? a little more?
That's correct. It's the turnout gear that we wear, the coats and the pants, the helmets and the boots.
Okay,
Okay?
very good.
So keep rounding up at Firehouse Subs when you're there, right?
Yeah, go ahead. Buy a bucket every once in a while, we're fine with that too.
Right. Dr. Reardon makes the motion.
Motion by Raritan,
I'll support it.
supported by Bennett. Very good. Item 8E. Trustee White.
Yes.
Trustee Hugo.
Yes.
Trustee Raritan.
Yes.
Treasurer Kilmer.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Supervisor Bennett.
Yes.
6-0, motion passes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, item F, the board will have a discussion about resurfacing the police department parking lot. Anybody drive through there lately? It is pretty alligatored throughout the place.
This has been a topic of conversation in our capital improvement plan for a while now, trying to find the appropriate time, but yet we didn't really have a good feel for what the total cost was going to be. Mr. Boggs took a educated, wild guess when we had our conversation about preparing for this year, and we were concerned that it could be as high as $750,000 or so. We weren't sure, right? And we know that when the parking lot was installed back in 2006, 7, 8, that maybe the subsurface wasn't in some areas as good as it should have been. But if you've driven back through there, you understand. We've watched it slowly deteriorate. We tried to keep up with it, crack sealing, that kind of thing. But this year we decided to, I didn't want to put the whole $750 that you recommended. We put about $250,000 into capital, thinking maybe that we could phase it in and do phases of it. Once he had the opportunity to bring some people in, start talking about what that cost would be, it kind of changed our thought process. So I asked Greg if he wouldn't come this evening and just have a dialogue with the board so we can kind of feel you guys out and see where you wanted to go. He'll hit some of those high points, but as noted in his cover sheet, we can delay this a year. It'll obviously get worse. We don't know what the pricing will be, but we can also do a budget amendment, bring some more capital funds in, and get it done this year. It's going to be considerably less than the $750,000, which was our biggest fear, but we've got options. And with that, Mr. Boggs, if you would.
So, I don't know, Jude, when you were here, it was falling apart probably then too. So, first off, I consulted with the Rower engineering firm and got some insight on that, and we contracted with a company, Dryzinga, who was doing our soil boring, our geotech, at the new DPW fire station facility. So we pulled some soil borings to see what the subbase looks like. There was settling. The building has settled. The parking lot is settled. I think it's done. We firmly believe it's done. The building has been in operation since 2007, where the employee parking lot was built in 2008. Looking at the type of asphalt they used, lack of inspection and whatnot, it just wasn't done correctly. I brought pictures. I don't know if any of you guys seen here. So originally we looked at doing maybe a crush and shape using some of the material and put back into it to kind of build it up. And talking to some contractors, we've got good base, so we wouldn't want to put that old asphalt inside of that parking lot. We want to take it off and put 4 inches of asphalt. I've got sub-base anywhere from 7 to 10 inches of good aggregate there. So getting some of the pricing back, we're kind of around $400,000 to do the whole parking lot, where we budgeted 250. Now, we need to budget some contingencies in there, so we're looking at, to getting it all done, probably before 50. I would like to, at a max, there's curbs that need to be done. We have contingencies for undercutting in case we do go on some bad ground and soil. But if we phase it out, we might be able to get the first phase, which would be the employee parking lot, within the budget that we've allocated this year. But if we wait, you know, and split it up, there could be mobilization costs, the price of asphalt could go up. So we might be looking at another $50,000 on top of the 450 I would estimate right now to get done. So that's why we want to have this discussion. What direction do you guys think we should go in? It's definitely in disrepair. We spend anywhere $2,000 to $3,000 a year on just pothole patching with the DPW, just immaterial. It's a Band-Aid. I know Chief thinks it's a Band-Aid, and a lot of his employees do complain to me about the parking lot and yell at me to get it done. So here we are. We want to do something. We firmly believe we need to act. It's just, you know, going to increase in costs over time.
Any thoughts, Dr. Reardon, and then we'll go to Mr. Kilmer.
I would lean towards getting it done, the whole thing, just because I think in the long run, we're gonna save if costs continue to spiral.
Yeah.
But is the money in the budget, Mr. Lehman, for this, or?
So we have $250,000 in capital for 2024. It would require a budget amendment by the board to transfer in, you know, if we do the whole thing, an additional $200,000 to $250,000 to complete the project. So you have to do a budget amendment first before moving forward. We could take it from capital reserve, yes.
Okay.
And part of that contingency is undercutting, curb repair, and inspection. We would contract out to road professional services to inspect it. I think that's what we were missing last time. We're going to get proof rolling of the sub base and make sure it's going in the way it should be, so we can get 30 years out of a parking lot instead of probably 10. I mean, when I start breaking down, 5, 10. I mean, just so.
Okay. Treasurer Kilmer?
Well, I get the impression from listening to you that it's possible that it wasn't done quite right in the first place. Am I correct?
Correct. So the grade of asphalt was a very low-grade asphalt, and I hate to look at Todd again and get, you know, since he's a road engineer, but it was, I think it's like 1156. It's something they don't even make anymore. Yeah, 11, yeah. So it was a bad grade. It was a cost savings measure. I mean, we cut out several things at the close of the police department building. The service drive was gravel. We were supposed to have heated sidewalks through the whole campus. That was cut out, and then doing that parking lot at a 3.5 inches instead of 4 saved costs, which, you know, we did some repairs on some concrete recently, and it's like 2 inches of asphalt. So, I mean, it wasn't even what was put in per plan. So we want to correct that.
I guess my concern is that if it needs to be done, it needs to be done, and I don't have a problem with that, but it seems like we need to do it right this time.
And that is our plan.
Well, we would have Rowe Engineering actually do the inspections while they're doing the work, so that we make sure that there's 4 inches where there's supposed to be 4 inches.
Exactly.
There's sub base missing, that we're gonna replace it and not
Exactly.
just fill it in,
Exactly.
so. Yeah. So they'll be on site, looking at it while they're doing it to make sure that it is done correctly, so. I think that's wise. Mr. White?
This might be more of a general bidding question. Is this the sort of project that there's a lot of just upfront costs, and then the more you pave, it doesn't necessarily change a lot? And what I'm saying is, trying to think of is, next year we're building the fire DPW building. If we tied in, when we're gonna have to pave parking lots for that, if we tied in the parking lot payment for that to this, would there be some cost efficiency savings, substantial possibly? If not, then whatever. I don't know how the bidding would work for this.
Yeah, it's hard to gauge, but there could be, quite frankly, Trustee White, because of the mobilization costs. So a lot of times when you do this, it's that you're gonna see in all the bids that initial mobilization costs. I gotta bring everything in, I've gotta, do traffic control, I gotta do all this stuff. So there's always the potential for that cost savings, when it's coupled together like that.
Challenge is the cost increase versus the cost increases of asphalt. I know the road commission probably can tell us even better what that looks like, but road construction costs have, well, we found out with Baldwin Road when we did that, what those increases look like even over a course of a year. I don't know, do you have any thoughts on price increases?
It depends on the scale. Obviously, there's an economy of scale factor when you can do a larger amount of work, but that requires more capital up front, on the township side, obviously. But, yeah, for us, really, it depends on who wins the bids, and it's largely an economy of scale thing. You start doing smaller jobs, smaller footprints, your price per ton will just go through the roof. And so, yeah, sometimes it would behoove you to want to get a lower bid price to bundle things, but you gotta have
So to comment on Trustee White's comment, so I left in particular the service drive off of this proposal, just because we'll be using that as part of the DPW fire station entrance. So I would like to lump that possibly into the asphalt of the new DPW fire station facilities. That could be a cost savings there.
What's your thoughts on waiting to do it all together?
Price increase? I mean, I don't know what it looks like, honestly. I mean, I know what the numbers are now. Next year I can't forecast that. I mean, that's why I know you rely on us for our expert opinion. Me personally, I think if we're going to do it, we'll just do it all. If we're not, let's wait. I think phasing it might cause us,
You say do it all, do the entire.
Yes, so I've got it broken out in phase 1 and phase 2. We got enough budget to do kind of.
You're saying just the police department, right? Just do the whole thing.
Yes, doing both how I got it outlined. I mean, I don't have I can show you if you want to put me up on the screen, how the parking lot, how I got it phased out, but.
Could you get maybe a bid? We know what the footprint for the parking lot for the DPW fire, right?
Mhm.
Could somebody give us a bid for that and this, so we could see if there is a savings?
So with the DPW fire station, there's a lot of concrete. We're replacing with asphalt, so that's kind of two different materials. There is a little asphalt, but it's mostly concrete.
Public parking in the front.
Yeah.
But the weight of the vehicles that we run.
Right, okay, got it.
There's a lot of concrete around the building.
Yeah.
That kind of answers that then.
Yeah. So, but also on that asphalt part to group in, because that's going to tie into partly the service drive. We can maybe.
We don't want to do the service drive because it's going to.
Be construction drive. That's going to be actually the out on the construction plan.
Clerk Robertson, did you have a comment?
No, I was just drawing your attention to Trustee Raritan's request.
Okay. All right, well, do we want Mr. Boggs to move forward on looking for pricing, I guess, is the next step, or what are the next steps?
Pricing, we just want to have the discussion what direction we want to go. So I talking with Superintendent Lehman and Director Cooley, I think the thoughts are we have a consensus, and the next board meeting we come in either with the budget amendment and to move forward with the whole thing, or just approve, phase 1 of the parking lot.
What's the consensus here? Move forward on doing this, or?
I would vote for the whole thing.
When you say the whole thing, do the police department instead of in phases, do it
the whole
400,000 or whatever we think it's going to be in the range of. Mr. White?
I would agree to do it all at once, but I think we should at least look at possible savings between paving. I mean, if we do it all at once next year, is it really going to be that big of a difference?
Well, it's going to probably be more like 2 years, right? Because, they're going to start on the
We'll
project.
start on it this year. We're still expecting to be in that building by the end of 2025.
Oh, do we? Okay. All right.
2026, you would, maybe 25 to
Yep.
maybe at the end of 25.
Could end up, just depends on where we're at, could end up wrapping into 2026, but we're a little bit behind on getting the bid out, but that should be going out next week.
But they probably won't be able to, if it's late in 2025, they're not going to be doing asphalt.
Well, we'll have to, if they're gonna give us a building, we'll have the parking lot done before we're gonna get the building. So
Because the asphalt plant's probably closing what?
November 15th normally. Push. Yeah, these Indian summers, right?
I don't know if it's real great to be doing asphalt on frozen ground either.
Yeah, it was coming to work on Saginaw Street. It was snowing when.
So what's the thoughts? Get something on doing both of it or what? I don't know, couldn't they give us a price on looking at that?
I think it's at least we should look into. I mean, if we can save, if it's an economy of scale sort of project and we can save potentially a decent amount of money, I understand that
Yeah.
costs may go up. But if the costs go up, but we save more money, that, I don't know. Somebody's gotta be able to.
we can take
Let's
the
check.
bids that you have now, perhaps as a suggestion between now and the next board meeting, have a conversation with those contractors about, here's the plans for the DPW fire station building, here's where the asphalt would be, and have that conversation, have them give you a probable opinion of what that looks like, and then what type of mobilization costs potentially could be saved. We're not asking them to bid the project right now, obviously, for a late 2025 project, but just to get that probable opinion of, is there a cost savings if we were to delay a year?
And it would offset,
And include whatever was being done over at.
and would it offset the increase in cost of, inflation too on materials, which I don't know if they'll know that or not,
I
but
can reach out to those contractors.
Sure.
Absolutely.
they can give us their best estimate anyways. But I think it's legitimate to ask those questions, so thanks, Paul. Okay, we'll got some clarification on that then, and moving on to, thanks, Mr. Boggs.
Thank you, guys.
Item G, the board will consider a motion to approve the updated policies as presented and rescind all prior versions of the attached policies. Mr. Lemata?
So, as you guys know, we have talked about this actually going back to, like 4 or 5 years ago, and try to go through all of our policies to make sure they're updated. We look at them periodically. Well, the administrative team this year, as part of what we wanted to accomplish, was to get through a number of policies, and so that by the in the third quarter of 2024, all of the policies have been reviewed, updated, vetted by legal to make sure that we are exactly where we should be. If we're going to be a policy-driven organization, and then we're going to have a specific strategic agenda item for the administrative staff to do policy review, so that we're looking at these policies annually. Are there any updates? And what we've done is we've been slowly but surely going through them. We actually took a lot of our policies, including board policies, facility policies, just internal policies, and we're also having the employee handbook completely redone by our legal counsel, labor counsel at this point, so that we're making sure that we are up to date and where we should be. That'll be coming before you as well. Tonight, what we did is these are 10 policies that we've gone through, cleaned up, updated. Board minutes policy, board resolution policy, facility use policy, concealed weapons, hiring policy, media relations policy, outside employment policy, the public participation at board meetings, smoking policy, and a snow and ice policy. And we've included all those in there. We've had policies that were left over that were old, that were not even in the same standard policy format that we've been using. So we tried to update all of those and make sure they were cleaned up. One of the other reasons we want to do this is that there's policies that were back, that were instituted in the early 90s, for example, that were still out there, had never been updated. Maybe they weren't compliant with legal. We want the board to approve these policies as we move forward. So if there's any other policy with the same name or covering the same scope that has a date prior to 2024, we know that policy, as far as our electronic records, will show them as no longer viable. But all of these, knowing that these are board-approved policies, and more will come before you as we go. Hopefully every 2 weeks you'll have another in your board packet, another 5 policies or 10 policies, so that you have the opportunity to read through those in the packet, see if there's anything that concerns you. Certainly you can ask David Laddie as counsel if he sees anything that is concerning. But we really hope to do that complete review so that we know moving forward that our policies are transparent, legal, and board approved.
So, Mr. Lehman, one of the policies, the facility use policy, I know we've had one, but did this change drastically? I don't see any red lines or anything, but.
It did not change drastically. I think this was more about clarification. And again, it's interesting when we do facilities use policy, because then we start talking about that we have different facility use policies, because realistically, we have facilities that we rent out at Parks and Recreation, so those are, excluded. We've got the facility use policies here from the community room. Our new building's going to also have a community room, which is going to have to be incorporated in. There used to be times when you guys allowed people to come in and rent the auditorium for different things. We need to make sure that we're trying to be fair, that it's open to the right groups, that we're not controlling content so much as a standard facilities policy. So it doesn't apply to the Parks and Recreation, facilities. And then there's also some considerations, obviously, with police department and the availability there. One of the nice things about the community room over there is that we're 24/7 and we have dispatch there and we have officers in attendance. So there's not so much a change as much as recognizing that having a standard facility use policy doesn't really apply. We've got one that's really the township campus is what this is, versus senior center rentals, Perry House.
Yeah. Did any of these change substantially from what we had in the past?
I wouldn't say substantially. We went through and redlined. Some stuff didn't apply. Some stuff was old and didn't make any sense, hadn't actually been in policy. So we didn't give you the red line copies, which I guess we could have done, but there isn't a lot of, as you read through, there isn't a lot of changes in here other than trying to clean up and make sure that it's still applied. The intent of the policies, certainly.
I'm good with all of them.
Mr. Supervisor?
Yes.
I'm just looking at the board minutes policy, of course, which is directly associated. And it looks overwhelmingly like consistent with what we do right now. I don't see a substantive change. Were there any substantive changes on the board minutes policy?
There was not, and really the board minutes policy came about, was written in 2017, 18, something like that. At the request of the board.
They all look good to me.
I just have a question about.
Yes. Go ahead, Mr. White.
Concealed weapons policy.
Right.
I understand people can't carry a CPL in here. Now, if they have it in their vehicle in the parking lot, can they do that?
They can.
It doesn't really make that part clear.
Yeah, when we looked at this, it was really about, and again, there's no restriction because we don't have a courthouse or anything in here from a citizen being able to carry, as long as they have a CPL that they could carry a weapon into the building, just because it's a government building. It's not a courthouse, they could come in here. But in employees, this has been a longstanding policy. This one was originally issued in 2001. We did have Police Chief Rennie review the concealed weapons policy. And we don't have a problem with employees having a weapon. They have a CPL and they have it in their vehicle at work. They just can't have it on their person on the grounds or in the building.
And if you don't mind,
Dr. Reardon.
And David, you might remember this. It was many years ago, like early 2000. This policy, I think, was in effect, but we had an employee that made some comments, and he had an assault rifle in his trunk, which he didn't have it on his person. And I think at the time there was some discipline of some sort.
Yeah.
I'm not going to give out any names.
No, I kind of remember the facts that you're.
And so I'm wondering whether having it in the vehicle is an appropriate, because the vehicle is on township property, they're a township employee. I'm just wondering.
Well, I think one of the things we're going to want to do is, and this could be one area that flag, and I think this process is actually for this kind of discourse. So, my preference would be that we are as strict as possible as far as possession of a gun, whether it be in a vehicle, on a person, or whatever. And I want to make sure that if we do expand the prohibition to the parking lot, that we're not going to run afoul of any Michigan statutes. That would be my only concern, just to make sure that if we do want to expand this a little bit, we want to be on firm ground.
Right.
Okay.
So this is an action item for tonight? Is a motion in order, Mr.
Yes.
Supervisor?
It is.
Then, are we ready for that?
I guess just before, and I've read these, I don't have a problem with any of them. I just have a question on that one. So I don't know if we should adopt that specific one until we get a clarification.
You can pull that from, and we'll put it back on the next go-round.
We have a policy in place that's probably similar to it right now anyway, so.
We do. The policy is in place right now that is very similar. So it would still, it would still be in place until we replace it. But if you want to make it more restrictive, it's one of those things, if we put that we're not going to search vehicles unless you know what I'm saying? Like, we will never know unless something untoward were to happen.
I agree, but I remember that incident specifically, and I remember threats were made and this was found. Maybe not threats, that might be too harsh, but untoward words. I guess we could always pull it back. We could approve it and always amend it.
Right.
If,
It probably cleans up some language in it, if nothing else, but
Right.
we already have one in place similar to it, probably a few different words, but.
Okay.
My only caution would be, I hate to make a policy that automatically causes some people to violate policy.
Right.
Because we're not going to police it. And then, but if that's where the board's direction is to do it, we'll get it out to everybody saying, make sure you clean out your vehicle before you arrive at work in the morning.
Let's go ahead with it and we can do some research and look at it in the future, so.
Is a motion in order, Mr.
Yes.
Supervisor? Then I will make that motion.
Okay.
On item
Support by Ms. Hugo.
8G.
Yep.
8G. Myself, motion, support by Hugo. Trustee Raritan.
yes.
Trustee Hugo.
Yes.
Trustee White.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Treasurer Kilmer.
Yes.
Supervisor Bennett.
Yes.
6-0, motion passes.
Okay. Thank you, and next on the agenda, we have an update from Attorney Laddie.
Well, and thank you for putting that on the agenda. One of the things that I want to talk about, there are actually 4 topics of discussion that I've included in a written attorney opinion. And some of those items I'd like to discuss with you in a closed session if possible. I understand also that Superintendent Limita has some information for you regarding a collective bargaining process.
Yes.
Would you like to handle
Yes.
all of these in a closed session?
Yes.
Okay.
I will make a motion that the board go into closed session to discuss union
Written attorney opinion,
negotiations.
and then also collective
then
bargaining.
also collective bargaining, and then also some attorney opinions. Is there support?
Okay.
Support by Treasurer Kilmer.
Okay, motion by Bennett, supported by Kilmer, to go into closed session. Trustee White.
Yes.
Trustee Hugo.
Yes.
Trustee Raritan.
Yeah.
Treasurer Kilmer.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Supervisor Bennett.
Yes.
6-0, motion passes. We are entering into closed session at 7:44 PM or thereabouts.
Yeah.
We have to clear the room
We're gonna
first.
take a 5-minute break, and we'll stay here. If people here